Good evening and welcome to the February 4th regular town council meeting. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Phillips.
Present.
Councilor Sims.
Present.
Councilor Willis.
Present.
Councilor Cooch.
Present.
Councilor Gagnon.
Present.
Councilor Boyd.
Present.
Councilor Seagull.
Right, and we'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes of the January 7th, 2025 regular town council meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Councilor Sims. Any changes, comments, questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? And yeas. Now we're going to move on to open public communications. This is a time for members of the public to come up and speak on an item that is not on our agenda. We're going to limit it to 3 minutes. If you have a comment, please come up and state your name and address. And just again, this is for items that are not on the agenda.
Good evening, Ken Curtis, 118 South Street, 53-year taxpayer. I have some concerns for the future needs of the different departments in Gorham. I certainly hope the increased needs for the fire, rescue, police, public works, and even the town office, that these concerns are being heard by the council members. Chief Fickett and Chief Sanborn have issues hiring qualified candidates today. You've seen the sign downtown. So what's going to happen in the future? The point I'm raising is the council and the planning board have approved for development at least 1,200 units. And I may have that number, maybe even low, of single homes and multi-families. Now here's another point. The council approved $800,000 for a new fire truck, and that's not completely fixed up with all the extra equipment that they need. I found out that a new ambulance will cost you $400,000. We can't get enough people now, and we need more of this equipment. What about public works? I found out that they plow and care maintenance for 152 miles of streets and roads. Their sidewalks, they have 12 miles of sidewalks that they plow, and there's probably some that don't get plowed. Equipment, people, is getting tougher. Have you considered the increase in the water needs for all these developments? What about sewerage? Do we know what the capacity for sewage treatment is? That may be a problem in the future. We may have to build our own treatment plant. Things to think about. There's a lot of stress around town for the taxes that the school department now has. Add what the new high school that is coming soon that they would love to have. That's a lot of expenses. And the student numbers have stayed less than 900 for the last 10 plus years. Am I getting close?
You're getting close. That's about it.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be back next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Good evening. I'm Jim Means. I'm a resident of Gorham, only for 30 years. I hadn't planned on talking during this portion of the meeting. I will later on something else, but I just found out today that the proposed development of the Gorham Golf Course, which is going to consist now of 904 residential units on a portion of the course, which in December the town manager was talking about it being a long and deliberative process between council and planning board, suddenly got whistled through by the planning board last night, and I suspect the public hearing on the agenda item might be in front of this council as early as next month. So members of the public, if you want to find out about all these new units, over 1,000 units being approved in a very fast fashion with zero consideration about our infrastructure needs, you need to begin to pay attention, come here next month, and voice your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else getting up, we'll move on to councilor communications, and I will start on my left with Councilor Gagnon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have anything to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kush?
I also have nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Willis?
Nothing to report this evening.
Hey, Councilor Lavoy?
Oh. Broke my mic. All right. I was asked from Council Chair Phillips to read a summary of a year in review from the Gorham Conservation Commission, and I'm happy to do so because when I started with service with this town, it was with the Conservation Commission, and I was chair of that for many, many years, so I actually wrote this report. So thank you, Bill Moreno and the rest of the committee for putting this together. So here's what they accomplished in 2024. They again coordinated Gorham cleanup in April with the Gorham Village Alliance, VIPS, Public Works, and over 100 volunteers in the Gorham High School boys lacrosse team, eco club, snowgoers, and multiple Boy Scout troops and other local businesses and volunteers. They picked up 1,600 pounds of trash in the village, Shaw Park, Little Falls, and the Crosstown Trail. And we also collected for the Gorham Food Pantry. Our proposal for the Grove Street to Tannery connection, which has been in the works for nearly 15 years now, was put into the town budget for fiscal year 2024, and we completed the first 250-foot boardwalk section and cleared the trail corridor to start the second boardwalk, which will be completed at some point this year. This will connect Tannery Brook, which is a town preserve, town land, with the village, a direct access off payment to the village. We also helped with the storm blowdowns of winter of last year at Claire Drew, Tannery Brook, and the Levelwood Bike Park. We worked with Greater Portland New England Mountain Bike Association to start construction on the bike park skill zone, including progressive wood and dirt jump lines. And this project should be completed earlier this year. They replaced a bridge on the Weeks Road parcel at the bike park, and this bridge was crucial to allowing heavy equipment like a tractor or an ATV to cross the stream to get to the other parcel, town-owned parcel, to manage the trails in that area. So that was crucial. And what we got here? Next page. They hosted booths at the Thursday night food truck events in Little Falls. They organized a trail work session with Gorham High School's Links program and had students work on some bridges. Helped out with maintenance with the Mountain Division Trail. Ernie Wells, as well as myself, we joined the Open Space and Trails Master Plan Steering Committee. Ernie represented the Conservation Commission. And then also, finally, Bill Moreno, along with myself, GP Nemba's Vice President Sam Morton, Tom Poirier, Cindy Hazelton from the town, and we attended the Maine Outdoor Economics Summit, where we were the featured speakers on a public-private partnership to successfully create a vibrant trail system panel discussion. It was well received. Personally, I want to thank everything that Gorham Conservation does for this town. It is a lot of boots on the ground and not a lot of recognition. And then finally, I want to thank outgoing members of the Conservation Commission, Thomas Mazza and Brian Rancourt, for their effort and all of the work and volunteerism they put in on their terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sims?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Lavoy. I'd like to second the appreciation of Gorham Conservation Commission. Just recognize what a tremendous asset all of our trail systems are for our community. Just quickly, I wanted to let folks know that our Committee for Capital Improvements and Economic Development was moved to Monday, February 24th at noon for this month. We'll be looking at recommendations for streamlining town permitting processes, as well as our town staff's recent progress on those efforts over the past year. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Siegel?
I'd just like to thank everyone who has reached out to me over the past few weeks. It's been really helpful hearing everyone's comments about a whole wide variety of issues. So just thank you for reaching out. I do my best to reply to everybody. And if you didn't hear from me, I give you permission to spam me until I respond. Thank you so much for continuing to be in contact with me. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention Councilor Gagnon and I were invited to a reception at USM on Sunday night. It was a kickoff for a project called the Horace Wilson Project. And Horace Wilson was born in Gorham, and he was responsible for bringing baseball to Japan. So we met with the Consulate General of Boston came up. There were members of the Red Sox. We even had Wally, the Green Monster, was there. And it was really nice. The members of the Wilson family were there, and so they're looking at a year-long project to do some sort of recognition for Horace Wilson. So we'll do something here in Gorham, and just to bring more attention to that. So it was a really nice event. So I guess we'll move on to the town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did you get Wally's autograph?
No.
No. Mine are mostly winter related. Just a reminder, now that we kind of actually have snow now, there is an overnight parking ban on all municipal roads for winter snow removal efforts. Winter sand salt's available at 80 Houston Road at Public Works. Any changes to any of our trash or recycling schedules due to weather or holidays are always posted on the town website. We get that question a lot. The Gorham Rec will actually be going out, I don't know if they did it last year, but to groom some of the trails in town some of the public trails, now that we have kind of skiable and snowshoeing weather. Gorham municipal or administrative offices will be closed in observance of President's Day on the 17th. And lastly, I would like to thank Public Works for their efforts this winter. Often people associate major blizzards and storms with a lot of work by Public Works, but even 1 inch of snow requires them to mobilize and go out. So when you have all these storms every couple days, even dusting, it's a lot of work for them. So I just want to recognize their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the school committee report.
Hi there, Nicole Fisher. I am Vice Chair of the School Committee. I am filling in for Sarah Perkins, who is Chair and not able to come tonight. You all should have a copy of my report. We'll start off with pre-K and kindergarten enrollment. We are excited to announce that enrollment for pre-K and kindergarten is now open across all 3 of our elementary schools. Children must be 4 years old by October 15th, 2025 to enroll in pre-K and 5 years old for kindergarten. Detailed information is available on the website, and I encourage everyone to help spread the word to local families. Emergency response plans update. We are currently updating our emergency response plans in collaboration with the Gorham Police Department and Gorham Fire Department. While our gold plans are reviewed annually, this district-wide refresh aims to ensure that all students and communication protocols are current and effective. We expect to finalize these updates by the end of the school year, ensuring that we start next year with a comprehensive and revised plan. Thank you to our partners at GPD and GFD for their invaluable support and in this critical work for our children's safety. Capital Construction Team visit on March 3rd and 4th. The Maine Department of Education's Capital Construction Team will visit Gorham schools as part of the state funding application process for new schools. This visit will include Gorham High School, Village Elementary, and Narragansett Elementary. We've applied for funding for a new high school and a consolidated elementary school. The ranking of these applications is expected to be published in late spring or early fall of 2025, with only the top 6 to 8 projects receiving funding. We will keep the community informed as we await this ranking. Postseason sports. So as we enter the postseason, we'd like to highlight the girls' hockey team, who will host a quarterfinal game this Wednesday night at the University of Southern Maine, and encourage everyone to check out the website for details and to come out and support the team. The FY26 budget reminder, a reminder that the proposed FY26 budget will be shared with the school committee on February 12th of 2025. This initial proposal will become public, and the superintendent will send out digital copies to the town council. Please note that the budget presented in February may differ significantly from what is finalized and presented to the town in April. We encourage everyone to stay engaged throughout the process. Recent executive orders. We've seen some confusion arising from recent executive orders, notably the removal of the safe haven designation, which allows federal law enforcement agencies, including ICE, to operate on school grounds. However, they must still follow law enforcement to operate on school grounds. However, they still must follow legal protocols and obtain warrants. Our schools will continue to prioritize safety while collaborating with law enforcement as necessary. Additionally, recent guidance clarifies that while federal laws have altered some of the requirements in regards to gender identity, Maine human rights law still protects gender identity under a protected class under the state's discrimination laws. Everyone can rest assured that our schools will continue to do what we've always done, which is to love every child who enters our building for who they are and ensure that they are welcomed in our schools. Lastly, the recent spending freeze on federal funding did not and would not have any immediate effectiveness to the federal funding for schools through IDEA or ESEA, as these funds are allocated in advance, and there could be some potential future impacts, but we remain vigilant and prepared to address these challenges collaboratively. We will continue to focus each day on our work, which is to provide high-quality education to the children of this great community and ensure that every child is prepared for future success in an ever-changing world. And then finally, a huge highlight, and I will say I did go this weekend on Sunday to see the Gorham Theater production of Little Shop of Horrors. So I encourage folks, there's still time to go see the show, visit the website for showtimes and ticket purchasing information. You don't want to miss it. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Gagnon.
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I usually ask for the budget to be printed and delivered to me. I ask every year. Is that still something that's available? Put in
Yes.
a binder?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions?
More of a comment, a brief one. I wish I said it during my council communications, but I also did went to the show, the Little House of Horrors, or a Little Shop of Horrors. I gotta say, an amazing job by these kids, the crew, the supporting staff, everyone there. Brought my family. My kids had a blast. The prop, which they rented, was something to be seen. Everyone, please buy a ticket, go watch the show. It was amazing. Kudos to them.
It was. And I heard they had to go to Pennsylvania
Yep.
to get said,
With a box truck.
yes, piece of equipment. So it was, something.
Barely fit
to
into the
watch.
high school.
For
750
sure.
pounds.
They did a great
I don't
job.
want to give it away.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to move on to a presentation from New Year's Gorham. Former Councilor Jenny Wilder Cross.
I'm back. I couldn't help it. It's nice being on this side. I have to say, it's a little more relaxing. Thanks very much for allowing me to speak on behalf of New Year Gorham. I'm sort of bragging for us tonight. We don't always let you know how wonderful it was, so I'm hoping tonight we'll be able to do that. Many of you know that New Year Gorham's been around for a very long time. It was 2007 when I first made a presentation to our council asking permission to create an event for the whole town to enjoy that would really celebrate, in particular, performing arts, and also to be a chemical-free event. With the council's blessing, a working committee was formed, and the plan became a reality the following year, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. Right now, I want to have Ben help me. We're going to show a very brief video that will actually show you what I couldn't be able to say. So go for it, Ben.
tonight at New Year's Gorm to do the show, we need a high-energy audience. Can you guys be a high-energy audience?
Back. The event started around 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock if you were ice skating, and it ended at 9 o'clock. I don't know how he managed to get all of that in 4 or 5 minutes, but I sure appreciate it. We got talent up there, folks, in case you didn't know it. Last year, the committee made a conscious decision to introduce that laser light show that you saw at the end of the video. We replaced the usual fireworks display, and we did it in response to environmental concerns. There are some negative effects to fireworks, and so we're hoping we'll be able to have the same kind of grand finale next year. We were really pleased that some very generous companies supported this decision and contributed the funds to make it possible. Believe it or not, a laser light show costs a third more than fireworks do, so it becomes expensive to do what's right. Each year, the committee introduces new talented performers, and we invite some of our regulars back because they're favorites. We also make sure that we include fun for families with little tiny kids and for all ages to enjoy. So it's a work that goes on all year long. The committee responded this year to a request to include activities for preteens and young teens. It's a group of kids that fall between being little kids and being little young adults. And so that group, we really weren't doing a good job of entertaining them. What you maybe didn't realize, but near the beginning of that, there were a lot of like bright lights, neon lights. That was the craziest thing, if you ever watched it. They were dancing with headphones on, so you didn't hear the music. You just saw them dancing like crazy, and they were all dancing to different songs, so nobody was dancing at the same time. It was weird, but they had a really, really good time. We are looking for some new volunteers to make sure we can continue bringing this first-class event to the town. We could use a few more members on the working committee, and we could also definitely use some additional volunteers to share the load on New Year's Eve. So I'm appealing to anyone watching this and feeling like, oh, wow, that's something I want to get into. Please let us know, because we need you. Before I sit down, see, I wrote notes, so I wouldn't go on too long. But before I sit down, I want to recognize 3 people who have been on the committee since the very first year, and they are stepping down this year, and we are going to miss them. So I have to mention their names: Doug Johnson, Donna Kenny, and Tom Hasberg. I especially want to thank Tom because he's actually been our lead coordinator for the last 6 years, and I can tell you from experience it's not an easy job. It's definitely a labor of love. You don't do that for money. And finally, in addition to the many businesses and individuals who contributed financial backing, we very much appreciate, really very much appreciate the town's continued support and backing. Without your support and backing, the use of our buildings and the cooperation of the staff that help us out, none of this would be possible. So I want to say thank you to you.
Thank you.
For allowing us to do it. And again, you can contact me if you want to volunteer. We'd love to have you join. It's really fun. It really is fun. I've got committee members here, and they're all nodding. You're doing the right thing. You can get in touch with me through the New Year Gorham Facebook page, or you can go to the town website. We have a page. New Year Gorham has a page there, too, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. All right, now we're going to move on to the agenda.
Public hearing number 1 on item 2025-2-2. Public hearing to hear comments to issue and renew a special amusement license to Junction Bowl, 7 Railroad Ave, administrative sponsor.
Public hearing number 1 is now open. If anyone would like to speak on this item, please go to the podium. Seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed.
Proposed order 2511, ordered that the town council issue a renewal special amusement license to Junction Bowl, 7 Railroad Avenue.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Sims. We have all the documentation in front of us, just for the public's knowledge, and everything seems to be in order for this. Any other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Public hearing number 2 on item 2025-2-3. Public hearing to hear comment on a proposal to issue massage licenses for 2025. Administrative sponsor.
All right, public hearing number 2 is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please go to the podium. Seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Proposed order 25-12, ordered that the town council issue renewal massage licenses for Elizabeth Burks, Rhonda Logic, and a new massage license to Julia Adrians.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, is there a second by Councilor Lavoy? All right, again, we have all the documentation in front of us. Any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2024-8-3, action to consider accepting the recommendation of the Ordinance Committee that one of 2 options be considered for a potential contract zone expansion of the Brickyard Quarry. Ordinance Committee sponsored. Proposed order 2513, ordered that the Town Council forwards to the Planning Board for review and public hearing a proposed contract zone with Shaw Brothers Incorporated for expansion of the Brickyard Quarry on map 34, lot 14. The options recommended for discussion and consideration are option 1, quarry expansion to encompass majority of map 34, lot 14 as outlined in a proposal from Shaw Brothers, or option 2, partial quarry expansion with housing development on map 34, lot 14 as outlined in a proposal from Shaw Brothers.
All right, is there a motion? All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilor Gagnon. All right, I'm going to ask the town manager to kick this off, and then we do have someone here from Shaw Brothers if we have any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the council is aware, this item came to you back in August. For initial consideration, at that time, the council forwarded to the Ordinance Committee. Coming out of the Ordinance Committee, there was a lot of discussion on the item, and I just want to make this very clear. It's hard to craft an item that's actionable by the council. So there's 3 items that were considered by the Ordinance Committee. An option 1, which was a full quarry expansion onto the lot acquired by Shaw Brothers, a partial expansion with a housing component, and then the committee did discuss a 3rd option, which would be take no action and moving it forward. If the council opts to move the item forward tonight, potentially we go to the planning board as written. Planning board would work on the logistics of the contract zone, have a public hearing, forward that back to the council, where the council would have another public hearing and potentially take action and have another vote on the item. I can give answer general questions this evening, and we have some staff in the audience, and obviously there's a representative from Shaw Brothers as well. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'll give an opportunity to Lee Pratt from Shaw Brothers. If you would like to come up and kind of give an overview of your options, that would be great.
Well, thank you. I feel like I should say donate blood while I'm up at the mic here because nobody else did. So disappointed in all of you. Just kidding. So basically what we've got here is we've got 2 preferences that we're trying to get guidance on from the council. One would be a 26-acre parcel of land that we would be able to continue our quarry into, basically. So our quarry wall right now would just continue into the 26 acres that we own towards Queen Street. With that said, we've looked at mitigation measures, which are, tracking wind direction. So if the wind is going a certain direction, we'll hold off the blast unless the charge is already loaded in the ground, and we legally can't leave it in the ground at that point. We're also looking at dust mitigation measures, pre-watering, and other different measures that are out there for us. We're obviously doing all our homework. We honestly do strive to be good neighbors. We try our best, and I understand there are concerns. I hear you, and we are trying to mitigate any of them to our best ability. Another concern has been transfer of ownership. Everybody says that the Shaws do a great job, and they do. They're honestly great people to work for, and they do care about their neighbors, and they try to do the best job that they can. So with that said, any transfer of ownership would have to adhere to the same rules and regulations that we adhere to. If they didn't, then they'd be found at fault, and they'd be in violation, and they'd be shut down at that point. Let's see, sorry, I'm just kind of picking through here. So then I can move on to preference 2, which would be a 6.3 acre parcel of land that we could expand the quarry off of. And the rest we could use for manufactured housing, which would help with the housing crisis right now. Obviously, we're in the quarrying business. 26 acres would be better for us and would appreciate it, but we understand that 6.3 acres is probably a healthy alternative to at this point. This land, as of 4 to 5 years ago, would have been able to be a quarry, but with the changes to the zoning, now it's manufactured housing, and we're in the position we are right now. So I guess with that said, with this preference too, would adhere to all the same standards that I said. We're still gonna be watering, we're still gonna be tracking wind direction, berms will be put in place, and proper buffering. So we'd still have to adhere, we'd still have to go for DEP permitting, we'd still have to go through the planning board. We're just asking for a preference basically tonight, and obviously the third preference would be no action, and it would be a manufactured housing zone, and that's what would put in as manufactured housing, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we want to start council discussion if anybody has any questions for Lee Pratt? All right.
I'm happy to answer questions as they come up, so
Okay.
I'll be sitting there.
All right, so do we want to start discussion, or would you like to open this up to public comment? Councilor Grush, go ahead.
Would it be okay to get a little bit of history about the zoning change? That it was a quarry and then now it's manufactured housing? Was that to?
Yep, we can have our Director of Community Development give us a little background on that piece.
Good evening, Tom Poirier, Director of Community Development. So I think what Lee Pratt was discussing wasn't the change. It was always a manufactured housing park overlay district. That's an overlay. It was the underlying zoning that changed. And I believe it was suburban residential rural changed to urban residential expansion. That was the change that was outlined in the comp plan that the council moved forward with.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so if we're going to open this up to public comment, what I'd like to see is people come up, state their name and address, 3 minutes per speaker. I would also just remind people that there's no cheering, clapping, things like that. If you support what someone's saying, feel free to raise your hand. So in the essence of time, I know there's a lot of people here. Just keep to the 3 minutes, and we have the timer that will show you when your time's up, so go ahead.
Hi, thanks. My name is A.J. Hungerford. I'm an attorney in Portland, Maine, and I represent John Wise, who's sitting in the front here. John lives at 287 Mosier Road, right across from where this expansion is going to occur, and he's been there about 20 years. He wrote a letter to each of you, which I believe everyone's acknowledged. Thank you for that. Attached to it is a photo here, which shows how close he lives to where the expansion is going to be. Overall, it's a terrible idea. This is an industrial facility that's crushing tons of rock, that's extracting rock. When he moved here 20 years ago, he thought, it's okay that, he understood that Shaw Brothers is down the road and everything, and he's dealt with the noise, the trucks backing up, he's dealt with the dust spilling over, he's dealt with all of that. He's fine with it, no problem. It's the expansion. It doesn't make any sense to they're talking about expanding this closer to the road where all these residences are and people live with their kids and everything, and then they want to mix housing in. How does that make any sense at all? Who wants to live next to a quarry? I don't get that, but I guess Shaw Brothers can explain. The bottom line is that when there needs to be, he's talking about, the Shaw Brothers representative here was talking about, not blasting and monitoring the wind and everything. How are you going to keep those particulates from spilling over? John is already getting that stuff right now. They have 3 horses over there. They've got a beautiful barn. Keep it where it is. Don't let it expand. It just doesn't make sense. And I think if this moves forward, there'll be some further comments, but, this is a beautiful town. Keep it that way.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Doug Carter, 7 Paradise Way. So a few comments. I do believe Shaw Brothers has a great company. 50 years ago, 2 brothers started pouring foundations and built it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise that builds the infrastructure that we all utilize. But there's a couple of things I don't understand about their business. It was originally on Main Street in Gorham in an industrial zone. If they had stayed there and expanded the operation on the property without any need for town council's approval for a quarry, it would have been well within their rights to expand on the mining operation to the adjacent land that is also zoned industrial. Instead, they moved over to the LaChance Brickyard and had a special exception for the expansion of the mining property on an area that was zoned for urban expansion and manufactured housing. These decisions are something everyone is going to have to live with. I believe Shaw Brothers operates well within the state and federal regulations, but I don't think there's much that can be done to lessen the impact on the surrounding neighbors from the blasting and the dust. There are some things to consider when it comes to expanding the quarry. Dan and John Shaw are both in their 70s. Inevitably, the business will be sold and transferred to different owners who may not be concerned about running their businesses well organized and want to generate as much profit as possible and could easily add more rock crushers. And instead of blasting 24 times a year, they could blast 124 times. They'd still be within the regulations, but it'd be so much more expanded because they have so much more quarry to work with. So when you say that if somebody took over, they would still have to stay with the regulations, like Mr. Pratt said, it doesn't matter if the thing is 3 or 4 times bigger than it is already. If Shaw Brothers wants to cut off access to the properties that they generously allow to the public to use, so be it. I would venture to guess only 5 or 10% of the local people utilize the property anyhow, and such a selfish act would forever tarnish Shaw Brothers' legacy in history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Camille Sayo. I live in Gorham at 71 Queen Street. To the town council members and citizens of Gorham, I would like to summarize our concerns and state our opposition to the change in contract zone for the Shaw Brothers expansion. Number 1, residents' health and quality of life. Current blasting is exposing residents to dangerous silica dust. Current data shows silica dust to be harmful. The quarry owners provide no data to show the range their blasts spew this silica dust and no data on the content of this dust. Number 2, resident complaints regarding foundation issues, air quality, noise, and potential water contamination have gone unanswered for years. The quarry owners provide no support for citizens and their issues regarding their property. Number 3, just because the quarry owners say that there are no issues with the quarry operation as far as the state and federal regulations are stated, does not mean the town of Gorham cannot create its own regulations regarding the quarry to ensure the health and quality of life that we deserve as taxpayers and citizens of Gorham. The quarry owners provide no data regarding monitoring of their blasts and the community that is impacted. Number 4, this proposed contract rezoning goes right up to Queen Street, a residential area, and the street I live on, endangering the health of citizens, including my family that lives on the street and my niece and nephew. Since the quarry began, many new residential areas have been developed, exposing more citizens to the issues regarding the quarry. The quarry owners provide no answers to residents' concerns regarding the property damage that is occurring. Number 5, and last point, due to the lack of information, data, and accountability by the quarry owners, we strongly urge the town council to reject this proposal and protect the citizens of Gorham from further health and property concerns. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brianna Meister, and I also live at 71 Queen Street. First, I want to reframe this vote today. If you vote no on the contract zone, you're not taking something from the Shaw Brothers Construction or rendering usable land unusable. They bought a property zoned for residential use. The land is not currently usable for industrial use, and no vote changes nothing. It simply adheres to the comprehensive plan for the town. Next, I will highlight why a no vote benefits the majority in Gorham. In December, representatives from the Maine DEP attended the Ordinance Committee meeting to discuss the proposed expansion of the Brickyard Quarry. They provided some astonishing insights into quarry regulation in Maine. There are approximately 950 gravel pits and quarries in the state. The regulatory bodies responsible for regulating quarries, mining, and air quality departments have a total of 5 employees. 1 employee handles all air quality compliance inspections for Southern Maine. Neither department regulates the health impact of pits. This responsibility falls to the Maine CDC, which does not appear to address the issue. Blasting is not monitored by the DEP. During the meeting, the DEP representatives specifically recommended collecting on-site data on air quality to evaluate the impacts on neighbors in response to our complaints. They said they rely on regulation and enforcement at a town level, as they do not have the resources to ensure compliance themselves. The DEP employees also provided information on visible emissions standard adopted on January 1st, 2024. According to the rule, no visible emissions within 20 feet of ground level off property are allowed. This rule was implemented when the federal EPA requested that Maine's dust emissions standards be updated because they were insufficient. This rule has been enforced for over a year, yet we have photo evidence of dust emissions from the Brickyard Quarry. I have had dust in my house, and I've talked to you about this in my kids' room, in our bedroom. That's very personal to me. Ultimately, I hope that you take 2 things away today. The Maine State DEP does not have the staffing or resources to regulate quarries on a town-by-town basis. Instead, it relies on towns to implement sufficient regulations and ensure compliance. The Brickyard Quarry is visibly violating at least one regulation. They emit visible emissions, dust, within 20 feet off ground level off property. And we forwarded my video and photo evidence last month, so thus they may violate other regulations. These 2 factors would lead me to decline the Brickyard Quarry expansion. Violations must be addressed, and regulations must be reviewed to address community concerns and protect our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Story before you start the timer, can I just do show of hands? Who's here for the quarry issue? And can you keep them up? I went to the Gorham schools and I'm a little slow counting, but we'd like to know how many people are here. You got a pretty good count over there? Okay, thank you. Sorry, appreciate that. Hi, my name's Charlie Hamlin, live at 26 Hamlin Drive, been here a lot of times. Doing a quick Google search today, I searched or looked at various building codes and regulations. Under residential, the ICC updates building codes every 3 years to provide reasonable level of safety, public health, and general welfare. It's 750 pages long and reflects advancements in technology, energy efficiency, and building science. I assume Gorham must adopt these. Under quarries, in June of 2024, a new federal rule on silica dust emissions came out. Otherwise, there's very little on quarry regulation in Google. Did Gorham ever adopt that? No. Asphalt plants, regulation requirements for plant location, emissions, monitoring, and maintenance. Since Gorham has no asphalt plant regulations, we all know they are not being adopted. Why would Gorham have extensive residential codes and none on quarries and asphalt plants? Gorham has no employees with working knowledge of quarries and asphalt plants, yet it is considering allowing expansion of a quarry in a highly residential area. Currently, there are 457 residential units and 1,300 people living within a 1-mile radius of the quarry. If the quarry expands, it will impact an additional 326 residential units and 1,000 people. That's 12% of people living in Gorham will be impacted by this expansion. This is wrong. Placing blame for the lack of adequate regulations will not help anyone. What we can do is stop quarry expansion until adequate controls are in place to ensure health and safety of residents. Our schools, visitors, people who walk our trails, buy ice cream, and bike in this community. The town council should vote tonight to deny the contract zone for quarry expansion. They should direct the town manager to, within 60 days, form a committee of employees, citizens, town councilors, and quarry owners to develop reasonable regulations to protect all parties involved. Just vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
George Verselli, 2 Brookfield Court. I want to say that when you go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis of an illness, sometimes it's acute, sometimes it's chronic. The thing with the blasting operations, right now they're saying that the vibrations that are in the ground are considered a chronic illness because they're below what is detrimental initially to a home. But you get this blast after blast after blast, and that chronic all of a sudden is going to be loosening nails and screws in the buildings and cracks in the foundations. It's not just a one-time thing. They're talking at least 18 blasts a year, or limiting it to 18. I heard somebody say they're using 24 now. I'm not sure about that, but and you know, why do they have to expand now when they have at least 30 years of quarry to excavate there before they even hit the groundwater level? So I don't think it's an urgent to grant them a contract zone now. And if you read any of my letters, I really feel that the town should be looking at putting a moratorium on these contract zones because we're no longer living by our zones. We're living by we're getting around our zones. The contract has been a loophole for our zoning in town and should be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else from the public getting up to speak, we will close public comment for this item and we'll go back to the council debate. Anyone have any comments, questions? Anyone want to start? Go ahead.
Question through to the town manager. If it is a no vote tonight, can the applicant, through another councilor, sponsor another potential contract zone for the area? Is that possible?
Thank you. Disclaimer, not an attorney. That being said, typically, through your council rules, you cannot take up a similar or like item over the term of that council. So if you vote against an item, the council cannot revisit that until at least probably December, if it's a similar scope.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Questions? Go ahead, Councilor Kush.
My question is, watching the ordinance committee meeting and hearing the people talking from the state, and they were talking about how they prefer to have local rules to follow, I guess. And I was wondering, is it appropriate to not have a contract zone at this point and refer a gravel pit ordinance to the Health Council to look at the health ramifications?
Thank you. I can't speak to the whether or not it should be done, but I think if you're going to look at any other ordinances, you should send it to, as a separate item. You're looking at this contract zone right now, but if you were to look at the concept in general, I would send it to the ordinance committee. The ordinance committee can lean on people like the Health Council and professionals and the DEP and anybody else they need that advice from to craft an ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gagnon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in looking at what we're, I guess, deciding on tonight, this isn't the final decision. This is only moving a concept to planning board for the planning board to then hash something out for us then to look at. Currently, we have not looked at any language for a contract zone. We have not been given any information beyond I guess what has been presented here at a couple meetings and at the ordinance committee. So I'm interested in seeing what could be done with the site, because at this point I'm not so certain as to what's being proposed for the site, language-wise, sunsetting the site, putting provisions in to ensure that the site is maintained properly beyond if there were any hypothetical sales or end of life of the quarry, et cetera, et cetera. I also have, I guess, some reservations about the proposal a little bit, only in that there's an uncertainty there that I haven't been able to quantify. So I'm in favor of moving forward to the planning board to see what's there, similar to other things that we've had come before us, and to give a fair shake to a long-standing business that employs many people at a high wage, and to, I guess, see what comes back from that.
Thank you. I think this is a unique situation where normally we'd have the language in front of us ahead of time because it would be it would be kind of a proposal or a question where there are two proposals. I think that's what makes this a little bit unique, that we don't have the language exactly in front of us. So we just have two proposals. So I guess we'd definitely have language after the planning board talked about it and after we gave direction as to which option or no option that we want to go forward. Any other comments? Go ahead, Councilor Sims.
I apologize in advance. I have some somewhat lengthy comments, but they're important points that I think we should share with the public. So got a few things here I've typed up. I'll get through it as quickly as possible. So back in June of last year, I was willing to support moving this request forward to give Shaw Brothers a fair shake, work through our town's process for consideration. This is a tough decision. A well-established business with a long history in our town, far longer than mine, and a number of nearby homeowners who struggle with the negative impacts that this business inflicts upon their quality of life. It's difficult to quantify these negative impacts in dollar terms, and it would be helpful if we had more data to inform our decision. But we are left to decide based on the information available to us at this time. At a high level, folks seem to agree that we need more businesses to bring in more property tax revenues without adding more kids to our schools. But how much property tax revenue do those businesses actually bring in for our town? That answer varies dramatically depending on what type of business we're talking about. This represents a critical issue for Gorham's future, and I think it is critical to document a few things here. Keeping in mind that we're trying to make a business decision in the best interest of the people of Gorham, not the best interest of an individual business owner. In trying to make a business decision, I'm focusing primarily on the real estate property tax bills. That's our town's primary source of revenues, to get a better sense of how much Gorham stands to benefit from this proposed contract zone. In the future, it would be ideal if our town staff could compose a more thorough cost-benefit analysis for large projects such as this. But for now, I'll focus on the real estate property tax bills, as land is our town's most valuable resource. The property tax bills are public information. I'll start with my own to give some perspective. I live at 9 Lucina Terrace on a 1.4 acre lot. I'm paying $6,425 in property taxes this year. Compare that to Station Square, which sits on 3 acres in our village, houses Junction Bowl, multiple other small businesses, as well as 33 dwelling units. Those are small dwelling units, and there are very few, if any, school-aged kids living in these units. So this is perhaps the best example of net positive property tax revenue in our town. On that 3 acre lot, Gorham gets $183,000 of property tax revenue, just on the real estate. Compare this to the Hannaford right next door, which takes up 4.6 acres, yet generated only $114,000. A bigger lot, yet far less tax revenue. Why this difference? Because more than half their parcel is a giant surface parking lot, which generates very little value, and since there is no housing component to Hannaford's building, the business chose to prioritize building as cheaply as possible. So for those who think we can't make net positive tax revenue off housing, these numbers suggest that is an incorrect assumption. As with our businesses, different types of housing produce very different net impacts to our town budget. So now we look at Shaw Brothers Quarry. Their existing quarry operation is comprised of 4 parcels, which takes up 145 acres of land, and yet generated only $137,000 on the real estate property taxes. And this is only 3 miles from our village center. As compared to Station Square in our village, this industrial operation takes up nearly 50 times more land, and yet brings in significantly less property tax revenue every year. There are certainly other factors to take into consideration. Vehicle taxes, the business's contributions to our local community, all of which are significant. But for a town budget, land is our most precious resource, and so much of Gorham's open space is currently under threat by low-value uses that just won't generate the property tax revenues we need to better balance our budget challenges moving forward. Now, with this proposed expansion for the quarry, there are no additional buildings being built. The expansion land would primarily be used for more rock extraction. The Shaw Brothers have indicated operations will otherwise continue as they have, so based upon the information that's been presented to me, it seems there will be relatively little gain to our town in terms of increased property taxes, additional equipment taxes, or additional jobs created. Almost done. Add to this the fact that the negative impacts of the quarry are dragging down the property values of the nearby homes, costing our town in lost property tax revenue potential over time. All of this, of course, on top of the fact that so many residents have communicated to us the negative impacts that they are already experiencing from the existing operations. So with all of this in mind, I'm just struggling to see what would be the benefit to the people of Gorham in approving this contract zone for quarry expansion on a parcel that is not currently zoned for such activity. Beyond tonight's decision, it's my intention that the Shaw Brothers in our town can maintain a healthy working relationship to ensure the best possible quality of life for all our residents as well as our business owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I promise I'll be brief. I do have a couple.
That's fine.
Couple things down as well,
I'd
though.
rather hear from everybody than, yeah, I'd rather hear from everyone, so.
I tried to gather my thoughts in writing here rather than just kind of go off the cuff. So unfortunately, the process of business expansion often creates conflict between a business and some citizens, as well as among citizens themselves. So I want to take a moment this evening to also reframe this conversation. Shaw Brothers has been an integral part of our community for many years, and their presence has undoubtedly contributed to the betterment of life here in Gorham for the majority of our population. As both a business and a partner in the growth of our town, Shaw Brothers operations have supported local employment, infrastructure development, and the overall economic health of our region. The aggregate extracted from this quarry is a vital natural resource for the continued growth of Gorham and the surrounding areas. As the demand for construction material increases with our region's ongoing development, this resource becomes even more important to ensure that we can meet the needs of both our current and future growth. A business needs people, and the people need businesses. If this was a planning board meeting and we were discussing Shaw Brothers' request to open a quarry on land already zoned for a quarry, I'd be a yes. However, the request in front of the council tonight involves the need for a contract zone, and I believe it is important to carefully consider the long-term implications of this expansion and the potential impact the expansion will have on the surrounding area before moving forward. While I understand the economic and practical arguments in favor of the expansion, I believe we must strike a balance between the needs of the business and the well-being of the residents. In this case, I believe that further discussions are needed, particularly around the contract zone and the impact on the surrounding community before any decisions are made. Therefore, at this time, I feel it is my responsibility not to be in favor of the full contract zone for this parcel. This decision does not reflect a rejection of Shaw Brothers or their valuable contributions to Gorham. Rather, it is a call for more dialogue, more careful consideration, and a commitment to ensuring that all parties involved have an opportunity to be heard as we craft a solution that works for both the business and our community.
Thank you. Councilor Siegel, you look like you.
Thank you, Chair. I keep hearing a common refrain is that there's still conversations to have, still a lot of unknowns. And when this was at the Ordinance Committee, I voted against it coming back to the council because I felt that we still did need to have these conversations, and I'm hearing that. I have communicated quite a bit with Shaw Brothers over the past few months, and I've of course been in conversation with DEP and really learning, getting a crash course in quarries. And like others have said, like Mr. Pratt from Shaw Brothers has said, they really do go above and beyond what a lot of the rules and regulations are. And even, when calling DEP and asking them, hey, who's doing it great in the state that I can look at? And they said, well, you have one right in your backyard you can go check out. If I were able to change the past, I would. I don't think it's a good idea to put a lot of residential near industrial, but I play the hand I'm dealt, not the hand I wish I had. And I will be voting against this contract zone tonight for the reasons previously stated, as well as I also think this shouldn't be a contract zone and should be a zoning change, which I said when we initially discussed. I also think if this does not go forward at this time, I would urge us to still work with the Shaw Brothers Corporation, work with them to make sure that they are still able to do the work that they do. I mean, we do need aggregate all around the state for anything, right? For building hospitals, for building airports, for building roads. So I think it's important, as others have said, they're a company that chose Gorham, they grew in Gorham. We should be willing to work with them and figure out a solution. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm not going to call on you and make you talk. So for me, this has been a super difficult decision. There are very valid concerns about the quality of life for the citizens. And on the other hand, Shaw Brothers is a great business, great employer. I know many people that work for Shaw Brothers, and I think we're all here happy that they're here in Gorham. And if this was a decision to put a quarry in a residential area, as another counselor said, I wouldn't be supporting that. But I'm hearing different things from different counselors. I think I'm not in support of the full quarry build out, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the council as to whether or not they want to compromise, meet in the middle, or not do this at this time. And I'm happy to continue the conversation, as Councilor Willis said, going forward about working together with the citizens and with Shaw Brothers.
Okay. Yeah, I've struggled with this one for several months now. Done a lot of research, listened to a lot of people, read a lot of emails. So everyone that has emailed us, particularly this last week, and then all the times before, we have read your emails, or at least I have. Just haven't been able to respond to all of you. The underlying theme, let me address that first. The underlying theme I'm getting from all of the concerned residents is air, sound, foundations, all of that stuff. And it has been told, and I sat at that ordinance meeting, I was there, and listened to DEP. From my understanding, Shaw Brothers is doing everything to standard, actually above standard. There have been no incidences of a Geiger counter going off or things like that. They explained that one blast that migrated towards Queen Street. We saw pictures from concerned residents. Yes, the winds have shifted. We were instructed when they blast that they do it during certain weather conditions so it mitigates sound, vibration, all of it, and they try to do it to the best of their ability, but at the end of the day, it's weather, right? It changed. We all know that. I'm an abutter, somewhat an abutter, so I have concerns too. I've dealt with the sound and everything like that. I'm trying to take a 10,000-foot view of all of this and trying to decide what's best for Gorham 30, 50, 100 years from now, when I'm dead, Shaws are dead, we're all dead. I don't know if the quarry's still there or not, but
Very morbid. Took it in a dark.
but it's hard. It really is hard. I'm also, as somebody told me today, I'm a master of the gray area. I like to see compromise, right? There's no winner here. There's no winner tonight. At least from my point of view, there's no winner tonight. I like compromise. I'm willing to give them the 6 acres, but no more.
Councilor Kush, go ahead.
I guess I just worry with that. Compromise is adding more housing closer to the quarry.
So if I may, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Councilor Lavoie, I appreciate your gray area of compromise here. It's always difficult to get some people not to like something and the other side to not like something, but then a mutual agreement comes. I could see giving 6 or plus or minus acres. I have trouble putting I think a mobile home park right adjacent to it. I would prefer conservation land to be placed instead as a buffer zone to the area. Part of my piece was expanding the buffer zones from Queen Street and making it deeper. But if that's your thinking, that's my thinking as well. Is I would want something that's got trees and would protect from wind changes and other things from the surrounding communities.
Let me explain further my reasoning here. Is I'm not in favor of this manufactured housing. Well, it's part of this proposal, but that's what's zoned for this parcel already. I don't care if they put up, I don't know, a circus tent there. My main concern is expansion of the quarry. And that 6 acres to me is compromised, and it does not cross that stream that's there, which would be, a feat in itself to expand that quarry, because you're not changing the path of that stream. So that's where I'm at. That's why.
And I actually, Madam Chair, that stream was a concern to me of, would it just dry up, or is it a bubbler, or what constitutes that stream? So if Councilor Lavoie is looking at it as that's the boundary marker, then I think we can have discussion about that and put that as a directive for the planning board to work with if this moves forward.
So unless there's any other questions or comments, I think we've had enough discussion. Some people have been pretty clear about their decisions. So at this point, I'm looking for an amendment for either option 1 or 2 to be put in that line so that we can take a vote. So I haven't heard anyone that I know of. I've heard opposition to the full expansion, which is option 1, so I'm assuming unless somebody wants to make that amendment to add the language in there.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yep.
do we want to start a straw poll to see where people would land on, say if it was a partial expansion, the straw poll would help get us and guide us to the amendments that would be needed.
Yeah, the only thing that we need to amend the item is to add an option, is that correct? To pick an option 1 or 2? That's all we're amending at this point, so if someone wants to make an amendment, get a second, then we can vote on it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to clarify, if you amend the order for option 1 or 2 right now, you're not voting on the order, you're voting to discuss and then potentially vote on option 1 or 2, which could pass or fail, but it's plugging an option in to discuss that option. And or also give more direction to the planning board on your interpretation of that option, because that's very important. Planning board isn't just going to dream up their own interpretation, they need guidance from the town council. Thank you.
Madam Chair, point of inquiry, would we want Tom to help us with any amendments that would help guide the planning board?
I
if there
mean,
was?
they would be just suggestions at this point. They would be, once we pick one of the options and we start that discussion, if there's any discussion about what we want to see in there, that's fine, but we need to see if, in fact, the option is, if the item's amended to put in an option.
Okay, so through you to the town planner, or community, sorry, Tom, community director?
Development director.
Director, yeah.
Development director, thank you.
He
I'm
should
stuck.
just- He should just sit in the front row for now.
Sorry, Tom. I'll get it eventually.
What would you,
Mr. Poirier, so based on what you've heard, what would you suggest for amendments to the second item or the partial item?
So a couple of things. One, kind of like when we talked about the golf course development, the language that you want the planning board to consider, you want to direct staff to identify, because at the public hearing at the planning board, whatever that language looks like and it comes back, if you want substantial changes to any contract zone, it has to go back to the planning board. So if you guys pick an option tonight of what you want to do, I probably suggest that you guys want to kind of iron out any standards that you want added to that contract zone to send to the planning board ahead of time. Or it's going to be, the process gets a lot more confusing when it's going back and forth between two committees. So if you do move forward with an option tonight, I probably suggest that you guys maybe look at adding standards or providing standards tonight, or think about them. They don't have to be like all clear cut, but if you want the planning board to look at noise or additional buffering, you want to provide that for the planning board for guidance.
Comment, we started Shaw Brothers worked with the town staff before the request for the contract zone came forward back in June of last year, is that right?
Yeah, they identified for us they wanted to move forward with the contract zone and then work through that.
Yeah, I don't have a question for Tom, but just, a comment relevant to what we're proposing. We had the conversation back in June of last year, it's 8 months later. I think that the people that showed up here, it takes a lot of time to show up. I think that at this point, I think that they deserve a decision that's more certain. Even the business's perspective, the sooner Shaw Brothers understands what we want them, what we're willing to say yes to, the sooner they can move forward with their plan. So I'm sure they'd be willing to, to play the process out longer if there's a potential of them getting the result they would prefer. But to some degree, even for them, knowing one way or the other will probably be helpful to some degree. So it's a hard decision, and I understand that we all want to get as much information as possible, and certainly there's more information we could gather. I don't think any further information is going to change my position on it, so I'll be voting no.
All right.
So, Madam Chair, I guess I would make an amendment to the second option.
All right, is there a second? Okay. So now we're discussing the amendment of having option 2, which is a partial quarry expansion. So let's vote on that.
Are we discussing that or voting on
We're
that?
gonna, yeah, we got to vote on it before we discuss it. And then, yeah, because it's just the amendment, it's not the whole item. So, yeah, this is just to get the discussion going. All right, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, 3 yeas. All those opposed? Kush was Beagle and Sims. Do you have that? All right. So the amendment fails, and I don't see any motions for option 1 to be added in there. So can we vote on it blank, or is that?
Thank you. And
Just
I mentioned
point of
it.
clarification.
I mentioned it briefly. It's the preferred method to bring anything back to the council, just one item, because then we run into all these unique scenarios. But if the council is not amending it, you need to close out the item. You would vote on the item as the contract zone, and just generally speaking, sending that discussion to the planning board. So, like you originally inherited the item as a request in August, you need to vote on that to close out this item one way or another.
Okay, so just leaving that blank.
So my suspicion is if you're not selecting option 1 or 2,
Okay.
you need to
Yep.
close
All
out
right,
on
so,
the item.
all right. I guess we don't need any more discussion.
Can we have further discussion?
We can have
Okay,
further discussion if you want to.
I would just clarify why I just voted the way that I did and sort of my stance on it. I am not against a quarry there forever, no matter what. I think there is more discussions to be had, and I'm certainly not looking at what the process would be, having it be in front of us and then to planning and then back to us and potentially approving a contract zone. I'm not comfortable sitting here tonight and talking about quarry standards and berms and protections, and I know nothing about those things. So for me to put rules into place that we're asking Shaw Brothers to follow would just not be a role that I should be in. So I'd rather see this come back and someday in the future after there's been further discussions and we have a better understanding of what we'd be moving forward to the planning board.
Okay, thank you.
I just want a point of clarity on that. I wasn't looking to have standards. We were going to have guidance. So it wasn't going to be anything that was concrete. They were going to, the planning board was going to take these standards that we were setting. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm an expert on setting birds. No, nothing against you, Councilor Willis.
Thank you. Any other comments? The only other question I would have is whether or not anyone wants to table this or send it to a committee.
Well, I mean, if, Madam
Go ahead.
Chair. Yeah, if everybody's saying that they want more dialogue on it, killing it outright for a year doesn't make much sense. So the 4 councilors that are voting no just to vote no, but saying they want dialogue, need to reconcile that piece.
Just to clarify, I think there has been a significant amount of dialogue. We've received numerous emails over the last 8 months. We have had multiple residents show up at ordinance committee meetings. We have heard out the business owners. Again, we mean no disrespect to the Shaw Brothers with the decision I'm making. I fully hope that we have a strong relationship with them moving forward. I don't, again, further discussion won't, I mean, we could talk about it forever. I think at some point we just have to make a tough decision. So I'm ready to do that.
Okay.
When I say dialogue, I don't just mean dialogue with us. I think some of the hard conversations need to happen between the residents that live in the area and Shaw Brothers. That I think this is bigger than just us, and there's obviously voices in the room that do not feel like they've been heard. And so I would love to see that engagement happen where they have a chance to sit at the table and have these discussions, and Shaw Brothers hears them and can come back to us as a sort of a unified group with a plan moving forward. And I know they're not going to be totally unified. They're not going to be lockstep on here's what's happening. But I do think there's a chance to work together and try to find a solution that can work for all parties.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Councilor Kush.
I guess I'm now confused. So one of the options was no action, but if we don't choose an option, does it still go back to the planning board?
No.
I can
No,
clarify
go ahead.
that.
Yep.
Please.
Thank you. Again, this is not the norm on, typically one recommendation comes out of a committee, and part of the confusion is on me. Right now, what you have before you is the original item to look at a contract zone for Shaw Brothers. You have not opted to take a specified or a narrowly tailored route to the planning board. What you have before you is just generally speaking sending the concept of a quarry to the planning board. So what I'm gathering is there's not enough support for either option. You're going to vote one way or another on this item. And again, I'm not speaking for your votes, but based on what you've had the discussion on and not selecting any refined options to send to the planning board, which we would recommend at the staff level, give them as much direction as possible. If you choose not to send this to the planning board, you would vote no on it right now.
Thank you.
So just to clarify that, the vote we're about to take is on the action to consider a potential contract zone expansion, one of either two options. And just for the record, at the ordinance committee, there was not a recommendation either way. There was one vote in favor, there was one vote against, and there was one abstention.
Yep. All right. Any other comments? All right. We'll take a vote. Everybody understands what we're voting on? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? 7 opposed. Item fails. Just so the public understands, that item failed and there's nothing happening, and it's not moving to the planning board.
Item 2025-2-4, action to consider forming a cemetery advisory committee, Councilor Phillips sponsored. Proposed order 25-14, ordered that the town council authorizes the creation of a cemetery advisory committee for the purpose of encouraging citizen involvement in maintaining, documenting, and preserving Gorham's local public cemeteries. And
All right.
be it further ordered.
Yep, hold on. I was going to say, just finish reading, but then we're going to take a pause and let everybody leave.
Please be quiet in the chamber.
All right, go ahead.
Be it further
Don't have a
ordered that the
gavel.
committee shall consist of 7 members appointed by the town council for staggering terms and shall be advisory in nature.
I'm going to let everyone exit
They can stay.
so we can have a discussion. All right, so is there a motion on this item?
Motion.
Motion by Councilor Lavoy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Siegel. All right, I brought this up because we were contacted by Dennis Morton, who is here in the audience. He brought up the idea of an advisory committee to the cemeteries and was really concerned about the nature of the graves and the cataloging, and if any of the headstones had fallen over. And that's something that Public Works does right now. It's kind of low-hanging fruit on what we end up doing. So if there are citizens that would like to be part of this, I think it would be great. And speaking from Historical Society perspective, this is also a great idea. We've done our research on cataloging and making sure our records are correct. And oddly enough, I think the council all received the,
The time to.
Yep, it was perfect timing. So the MMA magazine was talking about the labor of commitment on cemeteries. So hopefully everyone read that article, and that talked about how to do this. So this is just a creation of a committee, and someone from the Historical Society would be happy to be on that committee. We can talk about that later, but I'll turn it over to the town manager. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be quick. We, at the staff level, were tasked to look at other ways to find citizen involvement in committees. This is an item that routinely comes up. And again, to the chair's point, cemeteries we try to take good care of, but at the end of the day, there's budget priorities, and usually it's at the bottom of the pecking order. So looking forward to some citizen involvement. Public Works will be involved, some staff time, and at the very least have a dialogue and discussion of getting input from people that are out in the cemeteries and where the town can prioritize resources as well as volunteer efforts. Thank you.
Just quick question, will the committee have a budget?
Thank you. I won't promise anything. The committee will have staff support, and likely a budget will be utilizing the resources of the town budget. We can look, as a committee gets established, there, like some of the other committees, they have a little bit of spending money, a couple $1,000s for projects. We could look at something like that, but I think the focus would be how do we best utilize the resources that we have available to us right now? And we do budget for cemeteries, not nearly enough as much money as we should, but there is money there.
I think the intent was that they would bring their suggestions or, things to
And
the
come back to
council.
us.
Yep.
Yep, I highly advise, once this is created and you figure out the lay of the land and what you need, you come back. If you have any financial needs from us, you come back and request it.
Thank you. Councilor Gagnon?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think in my time here, this is the second time such an item has come before us in the last decade plus. I think the last time was to fix some of the toppled grave markers on Fort Hill, as well as a few other things. So I'm glad to see that we're looking to take care of some of our cemeteries.
Thank you. Councilor Kush, go ahead.
I guess I would like us to encourage, even though this is specifically Cemetery Advisory Committee, I would like to see it include any possible inventory of Native peoples' burial grounds that might be within our town limits, that it wouldn't just be focused on gravestones.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Madam Chair,
Ed?
thank you very much. This is a bit nitpicky, but Cemetery Advisory Committee, when I think this, just the way that's phrased, it sounds like this is going to be a lot more on the ground, actually cleaning things, making our cemetery slightly nicer. Is that I guess I should clarify.
Thank you. I think, I don't think it was envisioned that way, but I think there's interest from volunteers. I routinely get people coming to our office or Public Works saying, I want to go in, I want to volunteer in the cemetery. Some have training on how to do that, others don't. I've had some experiences in the past where someone will go in thinking they're doing a great job and they'll cut down a bunch of shrubs, and those shrubs were planted by somebody's grandparents, and it blows up. So I think it could be both. I think initially it's going to be a discussion of just the general care and maintenance of our cemeteries, but it could branch out into volunteer opportunities working with Public Works and the committee.
Got it. Yeah, I see this in the long term. Moving more like the Conservation Commission, where there's a small group of people that are looking at kind of larger term plans as well as a larger volunteer network. The only other thing I'm just kind of stating this, no need for an amendment or anything, but just I'd love this committee to also be thinking about vacancy, what percentage we're at, just so that we have some people thinking about how much space we have for cemeteries. And
Yes.
Yeah.
We will do space.
Yeah. But I'm very happy to see another committee.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas. Thank you, Mr. Morton.
Item 2025-2-5, action to consider accepting Falcon Crest Drive as a public way, Councilor Lavoy sponsored. Proposed Order 25-15, order that the Town Council accepts 1,575 feet of Falcon Crest Drive as a public way effective May 1st, 2025. And be it further ordered that the Town Council designates Falcon Crest Drive as an urban sub-collector.
Is there a motion? Motion by Counselor Lavoy. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Counselor Gagnon. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I will, fill me in if I miss anything. But to be brief, Falcon Crest, Pheasant Knoll subdivision or development, 55 and plus. It's been a subdivision that's been in the works for years now. I want to say more of a decade. I was on the Conservation Commission when this whole thing started, and in interest of trail connectivity, we worked with the original developer, now the most recent or current developer, to get this trail access connectivity. This item, although we don't like accepting new streets, we understand it's an issue. This one is built to town standards and also gives the public trail access and access to two public parking spots which access public land. So this is why I was sponsoring it. I think it checks all the boxes. It's just an extension of what is already a town-owned road. I don't think I'm missing anything else. Ephraim?
Thank you.
The developer's here.
Yep.
If
I did make we put 16 units in the agenda notes.
Yes.
I think what we meant was 16 buildings, give or take, served on that section of roadway. Obviously, there's units beyond that on a road that is not scheduled to be accepted and or off of it. And some are, I think, 3 or 4 units. So that's obviously open to interpretation. But yeah, the council has pretty much free reign on accepting public ways, and the intention would be Public Works would maintain it effective, I believe, May 1 is what we put down. So after this winter, for the most part. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just making sure that it only goes to the trail connection. It doesn't go to the continued loop at the end? Okay. Yep, just want to make sure. Go ahead, Councilor Gagnon.
Thank you. I took a drive down there, Madam Chair. I would, if I vote for this tonight, I would like the signage by the town to be changed to state specifically that no parking beyond sunset, like every other place that we have.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we'd have to just check that, and we have an ordinance that governs that. We could bring that back to the council. I think that's a law in the road ordinance. So I can't guarantee by acceptance tonight that I can make it no parking, but I can bring that back to the council.
Any other comments, questions? Councilor Siegel, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to either Councilor Lavoy or whoever can answer my question here. So I think Peregrine and Falcon Crest are already public.
Yep.
And is Ridgefield Drive public?
No, I don't think so.
Hold on.
Thank you, members of the public.
No.
Okay, and then I guess share through to the town manager. What happens when a plow gets to the end here? I mean, what's it gonna do? How's it gonna?
We handle this in different ways. There's room there that essentially the plow could turn around. It's not ideal for a plow to come up to another section of road and have the ability to put the snow. There is like a cul-de-sac turnaround. That being said, Public Works works with the people in, we have this happen everywhere in town. So if we have a public way going up against a private way, they'll work with the neighboring subdivision and say, hey, what is the best way to handle this? Because you don't want to just plow the snow right up to their road so they can't get through. And it may be as simple as they just pick up the blade and drive around. It depends on the size of the truck, but typically they work with the neighborhood to resolve those issues.
I'll just mention, I spoke with Public Works Director Deering, and he did not have any concerns around snow removal there, that I also drove up there and took a look at it, called him, that was one of my questions, and he was comfortable with the plan. And also, just in terms of big differences between a normal new subdivision coming in front of us and asking for public road versus this one, this does go back to 2003, and in that initial contract zone, it did say that this would become a public road. So, we're 22 years later, but that is referenced in that initial contract zone document.
Thank you. Councilor Sims?
I guess I'd just add, supportive here because, as we talked about earlier, Gorham Conservation Commission, the access to the public trails are truly a unique and excellent amenity here in Gorham, so I think there's value to accepting that. That said, I think there is a significant cost that we're taking on by maintaining this. At least they've already built it. I'm not particularly interested in taking on more of the roads in this area because now we already have the access to the public trails. So, but I'm supportive of this tonight.
Thank you. I would agree with what Councilor Sims said. We like to, that's why I asked where it goes to the trail and things like that. We've been trying to do through streets, things that go places and things like that. So, is there any other comments?
Just want to clarify, I'm only supportive of this because it's in the contract zone. This is just such a slippery slope for us to be on here.
Yep. And just for the public's information, we're not required to accept any roads. If you want to clarify that, just so that people.
Yes. This is, the council's kind of, I think, had a different philosophy over this over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, but the council is under zero obligation to accept any road as a public way, regardless of how it's built or how it was promised, and no council can bind another council in the future. So even if, a subdivision plan says it's built to a public way, and now when we do subdivisions, it's explicitly put in the language that there's no guarantee of road acceptance. That's kind of a fairly modern addition to planning approvals. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All those in favor? 7 yeas.
Item 2025-2-6, action to consider adding additional indoor-outdoor recreation facilities and like and similar commercial and industrial permitted uses to Gorham's Industrial and Old Canal Industrial Districts. Councilor Boyd sponsored. Proposed Order 2516, ordered that the Town Council forwards to the Ordinance Committee for review and recommendation, adding additional indoor-outdoor recreation facilities and like and similar commercial and industrial permitted uses to Gorham's Industrial and Old Canal Industrial Districts.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Councilor Willis. All right. You're up.
Okay, again, Ephraim, if I missed something, but this is pretty simple. Our new industrial park and all of our industrial parks, we have some vacancies, and I'm wondering, are we missing something? Some kind of business that would want to move to town, but they can't because it's not zoned for that specific use. So this item basically sends to the Ordinance Committee to review allowable uses for our industrial parks.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? Oh, hold on. Did you want to say something?
I did. It's up to you. No, keep going. Keep going.
We're going to vote. All right, all those in favor?
Enough said.
7 days.
That was too easy.
Yeah, yeah, don't interrupt.
I'll make it work.
Item 25-2-7, action to consider instructing municipal staff to only work with immigration and custom authorities for matters that are legally mandated. Councilor Siegel sponsored. Proposed Order 2517, ordered that the Town Council instructs municipal staff and departments to limit involvement with federal immigration authorities to only what is legally mandated.
All right, is there a motion? By Councilor Siegel, is there a second?
Chair, you can have public input on this?
Is there a second? All right, motion fails due to lack of a second. All right.
Item 2025-2-8, action to consider amending the revolving loan fund programs and procedures, administrative sponsored. Proposed Order 2518, ordered that the Town Council amend the program and procedures of the revolving loan fund as follows.
All right. No, what would you like to say, Counselor Sims?
A motion to waive the reading of the rules, please.
Okay, yeah, all right. Second by Counselor Steele. All those in favor of waiving the reading due to the length? All right. 7 yeas. All right, so now is there a motion on the item?
So moved.
All right, Counselor LaVoy, second.
Second.
Second by Counselor Willis. All right, who are we turning this over to? Kevin?
Yeah, I could take a crack
Okay.
at it first.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the revolving loan committee has requested that some of their guiding language be updated. And essentially what this has done is they've worked with legal counsel and people of the field on the committee to try to consolidate some of the policies that we had on the books, as well as try to, and this is not necessarily my area of expertise, but try to simplify, and I know that's easy for me to say when you're looking at all this language, simplify at the committee level what they're able to do to help people. I'm guessing the small business owner coming in is going to look at this like I do and be like, that's a lot of language, but my understanding is at the committee level gives them a little bit more flexibility and tools while also shoring up the process. Am I correct in that, Kevin? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, Kevin Jensen, Economic Development Director. I brought my muscle. Jeremy Hankin, he's the Vice Chair for the RLF Committee. Essentially what you have in front of you is it's a merger of the two documents that have been in place for the program since, I believe since inception, which is since 2004. And so we're taking the two documents that have been in place, merging them into one document, and what you have in front of you, highlighted, underlined, the highlighted areas are going to be the areas where it's either additional language or that we've moved it from where it was in a previous document into a different area. So really trying to make one comprehensive document that makes a lot more sense. It's both for the committee and us to utilize when we're in front of borrowers. It's also for borrowers to understand how the program works and how it functions and what the process overall is. We've found now that we have an active revolving loan fund program, I think we have about 13 loans that are on the books right now. A lot of questions come up about how the process is run. And a lot of that information is not there written for the program. So we've been working over the last 6 to 8 months to incorporate more of that language in so that it makes a lot more sense for prospective borrowers.
Okay. I just have a quick question. So in terms of kind of like what the town manager said, when reading this, if you were a borrower, you wouldn't know. I mean, you could probably read through it and see if you qualify and things like that. Do you have anything from the revolving loan fund that kind of gives the lowdown of, yeah, you might qualify for one of our loans versus this whole document?
Yes. So this is our policy document on our website, gorhammaine.org.
Yep.
There's a whole page there that lays it down. That's more of your just quick and easy. Here's how the program works. Here's how we look at interest rates for loans of, for instance, if it's a loan of $25,000 or less, there's a certain interest rate applied for those loans. If it's above $25,000, it's a different interest rate. So more of that just kind of layman's perspective of the program is online.
Okay,
and that's the starting spot. And generally how we work with the program is that anyone who has a question, we have a conversation with them first and go through them and explain what the process is. Bring in the committee and either the full committee as necessary or the chair or the vice chair on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so this is more of the guiding document for the committee?
This is the guiding
Okay.
document for the committee to utilize going
Okay.
forward.
No, I appreciate that because we, from time to time, put new people on the committees, and this is a better to wrap their head around what they're doing on that committee. So thank you.
We plan on having this document made available to the public so that they can get into the weeds if they'd like to, but it's going to be in addition to what we have online describing the program.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor LaVoy?
Yeah, so being a recipient of the revolving loan fund almost 11 years ago, I can appreciate streamlining this, making it more clear as a new small business, trying to figure it out, navigate it all. It's nerve-wracking to say the least. So I'm reading through this, I'm glad it's just clear and concise. Okay, I can apply or I don't qualify, and this is what I need to give the town for documentation. One question I have, so I appreciate doing this. One question I had regarding, is it the addition of as far as eligibility requirements, tax exempt and nonprofit organizations? Is that a new sentence there? Under?
Yes.
Yes? By case basis?
Yes, that is added. So the yellow versus the underline versus all that. Sorry about that, but trying to spare you from a track change version. But the underline is going to be, for the most part, is going to be new language added. So that nonprofit piece is additional language that is coming after conversations with the town attorney about whether or not nonprofits were eligible for the program. So that is another reason why we were going in and adding additional language, because those kind of issues came up. So it's a good question.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that in there, because I know a nonprofit did attempt to apply, and as far as job creation, check, community benefit, check, local economic development, check. They demonstrated all, but they were turned down just because they were a nonprofit. So I'm glad to see that in here.
Wasn't because they were a nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's because they're a religious organization.
All right, so any other comments? Go ahead.
I do actually just have a question. I'm supportive of these changes. I'd love to have more discussions with the Economic Development Corporation on the current portfolio and whether there's anything we can do to make it more accessible to more small businesses, because supporting more small businesses from within Gorham is the best way for us to grow our business base. An eligibility question I have for you. So can it be applied for a business that's got like a mixed use building, or can it only be for strictly commercial activities?
Mixed use would apply. Yeah, there's a commercial entity.
Great.
Yep. And in terms of your first comment, we're hoping that once we get this in place, we definitely want to come back to you guys with ideas about how to further advance the program with some other ideas on how to make it a little bit more diverse and address certain sectors and that kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, thank
Yep.
you. There's a couple pieces in here that I don't necessarily, I guess, like or agree with. One of which is the crossing out of neither the chair nor vice chair can serve more than 3 consecutive one-year terms in this capacity. That part strikes me as a control that's something I would want. I would want turnover, particularly with some of the powers that the chair and the vice chair do wield. It would make sense to have turnover, as well as if they do it for so long that no one else gets any experience, you don't have any sustainability within the board. The other piece that struck me too, which was an ad, was removal must follow 30 AMSR, whereby appointed officials may only be removed for cause after notice and hearing. Everybody is at the leisure of the council, in my opinion. If we want to move in a different direction with an appointee, we should be able to do so without this portion. And I would look to the council on that. There's a few other things here, but I would like it to go to a committee to kind of flush out a few or iron out a few things, whether that's finance or ordinance, or I don't know technically where this would land. But I think it's something that we should review so that everybody can come and kind of discuss and have their input on. So.
Okay, yeah, I had a question. I had marked the removal just because that's been a thing for all of our appointed committees, that we kind of don't have a policy. So it just made me think of how, people's terms expire and then or if they don't show up. I mean, we just don't have anything in our other committees, but I'm fine with it either way. And could be a good suggestion to send it to finance if that's what people want to do.
Yeah, sounds good.
Happy to have it at finance.
Let's do it.
Go ahead.
I guess I would just ask a follow-up to Councilor Gagner's point. Why strike that around the term limit? Is there an intent there?
The current chair, I think we can, if the point is that if nobody else offers to serve as chair, then as long as the current chair could then serve another term, I think that's what we were making sure could still be possible. So that's the spirit of crossing it out, is that we want to make sure that if there is a chair, nobody else is stepping forward to serve in that capacity, then the current chair could continue on. And that's similar to how the GEDC works in another committee that I'm involved in. So that's where that is.
Madam Chair, if I just want to clarify, I love Dan Nichols. I think he does a great job as chair. In no way am I motivated in trying to do anything to Dan Nichols. He's an institution. He does a great job in that committee, and if he's watching, thank you. My point is, Mr. Nichols can very easily not be chair and still mentor the chair. Taking that role, same on the council here, if Councilor Lavoie wasn't vice chair, he wouldn't have the experiences necessary to become chair eventually, right? And that's why you have the vice chair, and you start grooming your next generation of leaders.
Chair, through you to the town manager, do we have term limits for any of our other committees?
Thank you. I don't know. My gut tells me no. And I don't think there's anything in the GEDC bylaws, because they're a separate corporation set up by the council. I don't believe so.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, but don't quote me on that.
And I'm also seeing Director Poirier in the audience shaking his head no. I guess my thought is, don't make this one different. Just if none of our other committees have, if we don't have term limits for any other committee, I think it makes sense to just keep this in line with all the others.
It was not an exhaustive search, but we did try to look at other committee documents as we put together our edits to this. So I don't want to go on record as saying I checked every single policy, but we did look and didn't find any other words.
Yeah. So I'm fine with it existing all the same. I did notice there was a change about smaller loans. It used to be just in the director in consultation with the committee chair, and now the vice chair is being added. And I'm always nervous about adding more people to decision making, but I'll let it slide. But if it starts becoming a hassle, I can see, just bringing it back to director and the chair. And then the other suggestion I would make, and I'm saying this aloud because it sounds like this might be sent to finance. Under eligibility requirements, the 4th bullet down where it says preference will be given to projects that provide an economic benefit through the creation of taxable assessed value in the town of Gorham. And then, it goes on. And for the secondary goal about creating jobs, we have a very clear goal for us. 1 job, 25,000. It would be great if there were also a clear goal for the actual primary goal of taxable assessed value. How much do we want to spend with the revolving loan fund to get back how much in taxes? I'd love to see a goal there. Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may, one more piece here.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you. As a 25-year veteran in the banking industry and working with policy and everything else, this is a quasi-bank And you never want to put yourself in a position of not having the turnover or the churn at the leadership. It's a fraud issue, and I'm not saying anybody's going to commit fraud, but it's a best practices approach. And this is technically outside that purview of normal grievances for committees.
Any other comments? You look like you're ready.
Oh, wait.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm clarifying more stuff about our committees here. Because typically, I think what we've done in the past is people self-request to be continued on, but we technically do have limited terms where we can ask people to basically reapply and re-interview. I think that was a question at the end, just for clarification.
So yeah, when terms expire, people can reapply that are currently on the committee, but they need to be considered with all the applicants as well. I don't think that there's any assumptions that people, I mean, in my tenure, there were people that, when I was on the appointments committee, that didn't get re-upped and other people were selected.
Right. So
That's a job for the ordinance committee, I mean, the appointments committee too.
So we do technically have something in place that after their term is up, they there is a limitation there. Yeah.
You all set? Any other comments from the town manager? Okay. All right, does anyone want to
I'd
send
like
this
to
to
make
the
an
finance
amendment.
committee, or?
Amend it to send it to finance?
That's,
Yeah.
you-
To send this to finance,
Okay.
the finance committee.
okay, is that okay? Finance is a good spot for it? Okay. All right.
Second it.
Yep, second by Counselor Gagnon. All right. All right, we're amending the item to send it to finance. All those in favor of sending it to finance? Okay, 7 yeas. Counselor Kush is over in the corner. 'Cause maybe you couldn't see her on the screen, but.
Good chance.
All right, so no more discussion on that? All right, all those in favor of the item as amended? Okay, 7 yeas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2025-2-9, action to consider adopting updated bylaws for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Councilor Phillips sponsored. Proposed Order 2519, order that the Town Council adopts new and updated bylaws for the Gorham Zoning Board of Appeals as follows.
Yes,
Motion to waive the reading due to length.
thank you. All right,
Second.
second by Counselor Phillips. All right, all those in favor of waiving the reading due to the length? All right, 7 yeas. All right, and a motion for the order?
So moved.
All right, Counselor Lavoy, second by Counselor Gagnon. This just came up, a request from the Zoning Board of Appeals. They found some things I went and read through, and I think it was like on a typewriter, our old, yeah, so our old document was from typewriter, so we knew it needed to be updated, but there were some things in there that just logistically didn't make sense at the time, and so town manager worked with the town attorney to update these to make them more modern, I guess we'll go with that word. So I don't know if you have any other comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. They're fairly generic. They're based on other municipalities. I would call them more or less boilerplate, but allows the ZBA to function within the scope of what they're legally allowed to do in Gorham. It is not based on Westbrook. That was one of the directions I was given. No offense to Westbrook, but we scoped it, I think the attorney scoped it by looking at several municipalities. So it should be adequate for their needs.
And I did run this by the Zoning Board of Appeals chairperson as well, so. Any other comments, questions? All right, all those in favor? 7 yeas.
Motion adjourned.
Oh, I was gonna say, is that the end? I gotta flip the pages, hold on. All right, motion to adjourn, second by Counselor Sims. All those in favor? Yes, thank you. Good night.
Good night.